jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Hit. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around, jump around, jump around now. Jump up and get down.
All right. So we decided to go ahead and start this one up a little bit early because that 10-minute countdown is just a little bit too long. But what's going on? I guess we weren't here last week, but I think you had a more eventful week than me. I at least had a better reason for not being on than me. You know, being over at the southern border and actually seeing the invasion firsthand. But
Yeah, that wasn't Wednesday night though. Wednesday I was dealing with some, I guess, typical you'd call it these days, travel problems trying to get in and out of airports. So
yeah, no,
18
airports
hour
are.
18-hour travel day kind of had me down and out when it was time to go live.
You know, with the old job I had, of course, being traveling all the time, I kind of miss it in some ways, but I'm also like, oh, thank God I don't have to deal with the airports right now because everything I hear is they're absolutely awful at the moment.
It's just weird. It seems like there's always an unexplained problem, a mechanical problem. The crew isn't ready. We don't have a crew.
I
It's
mean, you're
like
not
all
flying Delta at least, right? I mean, they're the ones who seem to have the most problems right now.
no, I think you're wrong on that. Delta, if I Delta seems to be the cleanest one right now.
Really?
Yeah, so I do a lot with American just because I got better options from Norfolk and Charlotte, and but it's the old U.S. air routes, and those old U.S. air flights used to be terrible. I had a no U.S. air policy, so that they weren't allowed to book me on any U.S. air. But it's the same routes, and it still seems to be having the same kind of issues getting in some
Well,
of those
I
airports.
remember I had to like beg them just please stop putting me on American because the American has the smaller jets, which is why they can also be a lot cheaper. And I'm 6'5" here, like I don't fit. It just every single time I got on one of those smaller jets, I'd be just cramped up. You had all those fat people for a while complaining about needing like they should get a free extra seat. What about us tall people? I mean, I can't help being tall. They can put down the fork. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, the way I was fed down in the RGV portion of Texas, I thought I was going to need a second seat coming home. Then our buddies down there, David and Karen and that whole team, man, they took care of me, so it was cool.
So real quick, before we get to our story, I do kind of want to ask you about this because I kept hearing or seeing on X and all this stuff like all the people coming across southern border. They're not even Hispanics at this point. They're Asians and from Eastern Europe and all this stuff. And then you come back from there saying, yeah, all there was a bunch of Russians trying to get into the country. So what was going on with that?
Yeah, so it was weird. So, we were down in San Benito, which is in the Harlingen area. And so we crossed over into Nueva Progreso, I guess is the name of the little town across the border. It's, a little tourist town like you see sometimes across the border, just filled with dentist offices and pharmacies, one right after the other.
The
But we
what
just,
was it, medical tourism?
yeah, it really is. And so we went across to get some good street tacos and just have a little fun one afternoon. And but coming back and we've been hearing down there too that there were a lot of Russians that were trying to get across. And so you know how they got the walkways where you walk across and walk back in, going in and
Yeah.
out if you're doing the tourist thing. And on the walkway back in, it's kind of like a homeless tent city all along the way. And so there's just people camped out waiting to come in. And the majority of people, as we were going through, you look over and the majority of people are white. And so, David and Karen are like, what's up with that? And so when we're coming back through, we just started talking to folks and everybody, we're from Russia. We're from Russia, Russia. And so even if that's the only word they could say, they'd say Russia. And then, since they speak Spanish, they could talk to the Mexican families that were trying to come across. They were talking to them too, and those families were like, yeah, the Russians are invading. We want to get them out. That's exactly what they said. They're invading, and we want to get them out. But it was tons of Russians and Asians that are standing in line waiting to come across. And so we started talking to the border patrol guy, and it's like, hey, what's going on with all them? What's up with all the Russians trying to get across? And he's trying to play it off, because I guess he can't say too much. But he said, well, they're just waiting in line, waiting their turn to come over and fill out their paperwork. And so, um, but yeah, it was really weird. And that's a part of the border where they've had a wall since George H.W. Bush. So, sometime around 1990 or so that they actually built a real wall down there. And so they haven't had quite as much of the illegal traffic going in and out because they've got a better border. And so these are folks that are just camped out waiting in line for their turn to claim asylum. So at least in that case, it's a little more controlled. Um, but
A
yeah,
little more.
it's not the same caravans that you see on Fox News and some of the other places that are actually reporting from the border. It was a lot different.
Which actually probably goes to show the fact that that we keep seeing these videos of the caravans coming across, like Eagle Pass and that kind of areas. But really, every portion of the border has people just lined up, ready to get into the country at this point. Now, the thing I would really wish we could kind of find out more of, the Russians who are there, why? Like, are they people who are trying to flee the fact that they don't want to go serve in Ukraine? Because, of course, they are conscripting different areas of Russia to go into the military and, basically throw them at the meat grinder, as the Russian tactics have always been throughout history. So is it they're just trying to, I wonder if they're trying to escape just being forced into service, or if they're just kind of wondering like, hey, this is an easy way to get in. And the same thing with the Chinese people and stuff that are coming in, because they said there's a lot of people from China coming over.
Yeah, there
is it they're just trying to escape their country, or is it the fact of they just see a opportunity to get into the country? You know what I mean?
Now, the other thing that was interesting is it's not a ton of families. There were some kids involved, and a couple of the kids that were Russian, they actually could speak a little bit of English with us, but a lot of them are your age and younger males that are coming across, which is a little disconcerting.
Well, again, it's wondering if because the thing is, we should be concerned about, because whether we want to say so or not, we are at war with Russia. We want to pretend like we're not, but I don't know. When you're giving someone a gun saying, here's a gun, here's ammo, here's how to use it, now go shoot this guy with our intel, I don't know how you can say we're not at war with them at that point. So we're at war with Russia, while at the same time just saying to the Russian people coming in through the southern border, just come on in, sure, why not, come on in. I mean, well, more than likely, I'm pretty sure they actually are probably real cases of asylum, though I don't really like the whole idea of us being the asylum capital of the world. But I think they probably are more than likely real cases of it, but it's still something that you can never really check. Like, we have no way of actually knowing if that paperwork they're presenting is true, if they are presenting paperwork, or if they really did want to just sneak into the country. I mean, easily they can just forge documents.
Yeah, or just pick another place where you can just come across with the line of folks that are just streaming over without going through the proper channels. But I mean, you say we're at war with Russia. I mean, there's more official noise this week that
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah, we're gonna let Ukraine join.
Was it was it France that said that, right?
Yeah, and
yeah, it was France that presents almost no funding at all to NATO, of course.
That in and of itself is, I mean, that's a de facto declaration of war.
I mean, Russia has openly said, if Ukraine ever joins NATO, we will go to war with you. It's as simple as that. I mean, because you're thinking, NATO is a pact for people saying that, if your country gets invaded, we will go fight for you. You can't allow a country that's currently at war into NATO. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it sure throws a whole nother dimension into what's going on over there, and not a very good one from our point of view, because we're of the point of view that we should be worried about our own border and not worried about the Ukrainian border for at least a minute.
Well, one of the reasons why we should definitely be more worried about our border is because, of course, that story that everyone's talking about right now, well, everyone, of course, except for Biden, about that case of that girl Laken Raleigh over in, it was Athens, Georgia, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's the home of University of Georgia.
Yeah, so she was out for like a jog and was attacked by an illegal immigrant, brutally murdered, and this is from the post-millennial, like so badly beaten, her skull was disfigured. Like, that's how badly she was beaten by this illegal immigrant. And obviously, people on the right, of course, have been talking about it. Biden has said absolutely nothing on this. I think they pulled up and said he made over 26 statements about George Floyd, but obviously nothing about Laken Raleigh, right? He went personally to go meet with Jacob Blake's family. Don't forget that. You know, Jacob Blake, the guy who was sexually assaulting a woman and trying to kidnap her children, who right afterwards grabbed a knife and tried stabbing an officer before he was shot. They went to go talk to his family and talk about how great he was and talk about how unjust, you know, how it was completely, you know, unjust for them to shoot at him while he, of course, was trying to stab them, which ended up causing actually the Kenosha riots, which is where, of course, the what was his name? The kid who shot those three attackers. Rittenhouse. Yeah, Rittenhouse. Where that all happened. So, you know, he'll go to Jacob Blake, this guy who is a complete criminal through and through, terrible human being. And Kamala Harris even went to his bedside and saying, "We're so proud of you." Yet, of course, when an American citizen is killed by an illegal immigrant, not a word, right? And it has been so weird seeing just kind of how quiet, you know, we talk about the divide that's been taking place, you know, in politics. And it's just amazing how loud one side is about this and then just how quiet the other side is. It's just absolutely amazing to see.
Well, the problem is one thing that we talk about a lot, but it's not just that the other side is quiet, but the other side controls still all of the mainstream outlets that are going to cover or not cover stories as they see fit. And so I know we're going to talk some about the fun that everybody's having with Gemini AI and how that's going. But it's just another case where the information that's being leaked in large ways to the public, it's just not getting out. And so the average person isn't seeing anything about this. The average person doesn't know about this because it's only right-leaning outlets that'll even talk about it.
Well, I will say this. I think this one is getting out a bit more than some of the previous ones had, because this isn't
but
new.
Look at the headline. Yeah, look at the headlines and look at how they're worded.
Oh, no, it was New York Post had a headline of saying the attacker was probably panicked while she fought back. It just, they're positioning it in weird ways. And in some cases, of course, they're avoiding using the term illegal immigrant. Instead, they're using the term, you know, migrant instead. Just whatever they can to try to distance it as much as possible.
How about the headlines? How about the headlines that call her out for going jogging alone? Like you're not like on a college campus or in a college town.
Well, a college, mind you, that college campus had not seen a murder in over 30 years. So jogging alone, I know we talk about the fact of you need to be responsible for your own safety in a lot of ways. You know, I would definitely say, depending on where you are, you might want to carry a gun on you or something. Obviously, a college campus makes that impossible to do, but you know, you should probably have something to protect yourself with. But of all places, this is the place you should be able to run alone at. No murders in 30 years. And then what do you know? We have a bunch of people flooding across the border and bang, murder. It's not a complicated, you know, line to go to here to figure out what the problem is.
The ones that angered me the most were the ones that wouldn't call out the fact that it was an illegal immigrant and called out the fact that almost blaming her. It was like
the victim blaming. Of course, they accuse us of victim blaming for all sorts of things all the time. But, you know, when it's one of someone who they like to protect who's the offender, well, then in which case, okay, well, they'll blame the victim, no problem. Which, well, again, is
the border is closed and secure. Our vice president and president and Homeland Security, they've all told us it's all good. The border's
totally
closed.
fine. No problem whatsoever. You know, don't believe your lying eyes, right?
1984, baby.
What is been really interesting to see, because again, I think this one is getting a bit more traction in some of the other cases, because again, this isn't unique. This has been happening for a long time, actually. There's been multiple cases of people being killed by illegal immigrants. Now, one of the problems is that the FBI and everything does not keep records on the amount of homicides for illegals versus regular immigrants, which is kind of how they end up twisting the data a lot of times when they do these whole things where they say, well, people shouldn't be too concerned. Illegals commit less crimes than natural born citizens. And that's a total lie. What it is they include regular immigrants to this country in that list, which obviously, if you're going through the legal process to enter someone else's country, you're probably less likely to commit crime in that country. But for one, illegals have committed a crime, period, just by being here. The fact they are there, they are already committing crimes. So you can't say they commit less crimes than natural born citizens. Every single one of them is a criminal, period. 2, I think it was 2018, counting both illegals and legal immigrants, it was around 2,000 deaths, right? Around 2,000 deaths for total for legal and illegal immigrants combined. That is still...
And you're only counting violence. You're not counting what happens from fentanyl and other things that are going on. So that number is a drop in the bucket.
Not only that, but they also don't count manslaughter cases in this either. So we also, there has been some studies to show that a lot of times illegal immigrants have a much higher rate of drunk driving accidents than natural born citizens as well. Mostly because, as you know, over in Mexico, they don't really have a rule about drinking and driving, apparently. But, as you've seen other people there do. But it's just not really, different places have different rules. And so they come over to this country and they've already ignored one law by entering the country. Of course, they're going to ignore other laws. So those stats don't even count the manslaughter cases that have happened, as well as just simple, accidents in general that they're committing just being in the country, period.
Well, how about this? How about all the instances that we're seeing now of the FBI and the law enforcement agencies labeling as non-Hispanic white?
So that was actually somewhat interesting. And give me one sec, because actually I might have pulled something up with that. Because that has been happening more and more often now recently, which is crazy to see. But here's one thing I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of posts about, not just Hispanics, but even just Black Americans being labeled as white in the system as well. And I tried to actually go and confirm some of that, because I had some of that I was thinking about pulling up later. But when I went and tried to confirm it, it wasn't showing it actually being true. I went and looked up the names like in the Tennessee and Texas records and stuff like that, and they were showing as Black or Hispanic just fine. So in some cases, it's 100% true. Like there was, out of the 10 names I checked, 2 of them were labeled as white, and one of those people were Black, and one of those people were Hispanic. But the other 8 were all labeled correctly. So I think there might be some posts going out and around that aren't entirely true on that. So I didn't have it ready to pull up here because of that. But I did check that out, and I think it's a little hit or miss with some of those. But the fact it's happening at all is still kind of crazy, which of course happened at first with, was it Zimmerman, right?
Well, and in a whole nother setting, it happened with COVID and how those were being labeled as well.
Oh, yeah. So it does seem like they are trying to, I think, push some of those records. If they can have a way of saying it was a white person over a Hispanic person, they're going to label it white, not Hispanic, even if the person is fairly Hispanic, right?
Yeah. So back to the story that we're on. Did you pull up anything about the mayor's comments today?
I actually got this right here, because he has a few comments here that are almost kind of funny at times, but if not so depressing to see happen.
Yeah.
All right, so here it is.
In the main, I caution against conflating immigration and crime. The data demonstrates that the two are not connected. Because the impact of federal immigration policy on localities has been under such consistent discussion in recent months, I do want to say a few words about this. It's my 18th year as a local government policymaker, and my work has overlapped with 4 U.S. presidencies and numerous iterations of Congress. All of them have failed to reach agreement on how to handle immigration.
Okay, so a couple things there. I know you can't really hear it too well over there, but I'm sure you can read the title there. Him talking about he wants to caution people about conflating immigration and crime. And to a point, sure, if you're talking immigration, yeah, I think legal immigrants do commit less crime than the average American citizen. So sure, you could say that. These aren't immigrants, or at least not legal immigrants, right? These are illegal immigrants. There is a difference between the two. Again, you can easily conflate illegal immigration with crime by the very factor of they committed a crime to enter the country. Every single one of them are a criminal. It doesn't, this idea that we're trying to find a way to reword everything just to fit a certain narrative is absolutely insane. But the best part is, though, and I'm pretty sure you saw this, it didn't end there. as he went on talking about the sanctuary city policy that was in the city they're in, over in Athens, he tried to deny the fact that they're a sanctuary city, and the crowd was having absolutely none of it.
Term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion. That term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion.
We know what
Many-
it means.
Many of the elements, many of the elements,
Liar.
we are here to listen.
You're a liar.
We are here to listen.
You're
There'll be time for
a liar.
questions.
You are guilty and got blood on your head for this murder, sir.
Many of the aspects that are ascribed to sanctuary cities
We know what sanctuary
are
city
things
means.
that are disallowed by Georgia law.
So he's over there trying to deny the fact they're a sanctuary city, and the crowd just shouting, "Liar! Liar! You got blood on your hands, liar!" Which is actually great to see, because we need to start calling these people out more, right? Because it always amazes me that these people can just come out and lie and lie and lie. And at these press conferences, no one says a word. No one challenges it one bit, right? At least not when it's a Democrat. You know, the right can be actually telling the truth about certain things, and they'll start yelling at Trump saying, "What do you mean it's, COVID's from China? What do you mean by that?" They'll start yelling at him over stuff like that, even though, well, we know that to kind of be the truth. But they can lie and lie and lie, and very rarely do we actually see people actually start calling them out on it. And so it's actually kind of nice to see people just screaming at him to resign, saying his blood on his hands, because frankly, we've heard this about us every single time there's any like mass shooting, right? Anytime there's a mass shooting, it's you got blood on your hands for supporting, people having the right to self-defense. So again, turnaround is fair play.
The only reason it happened is because they mistakenly let the public in and around this conference. If it was just the press, it would be just like always.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't have said a word.
I think the people, I'm not sure if they let them in or if just some of them walked in and they just didn't know.
Well,
but
it would be nice. It would be nice if all politicians had to have real people in the audience.
Yeah, right.
Not donors, not PACs, not plants, real people.
So here's a funny thing. Jack Posobiec brought up a clip from 5 years ago of this exact mayor talking about how great it is that they're a sanctuary city. So
The Athens-Clarke County Unified Government is welcoming to people from all lands and backgrounds and strives to foster a community where individuals and families of all statuses feel safe, are able to prosper, and can breathe free.
So he goes on saying about how great it is that people of any immigration background can come to their city and live and prosper, which is, again, really shows kind of who they are, right? That he'll sit there and, of course, advocate it when it benefits, but, of course, the minute that it turns around, oh, no, we're not a sanctuary city. What are you talking about? We've never said that. It's like 1984, right? Just erase the history and people will believe it's always been so.
Yeah, they all want to be a sanctuary city until they actually have to start taking in illegal immigrants. Then
That's been so fun.
Oh, this is too much. You can't do this. This is your human trafficking.
No, it should go to those border towns that barely have, anyone in there. They should have double the population because of illegal immigration. But our city that, we tout as just the pinnacle of civilization, basically, we can't handle even a fraction of those amount of people. Like it's, when we really look at the numbers, it's not a lot.
Historically, until it got overwhelmed with the numbers they have now, historically, the border towns were probably about the safest places you could be. Because if you made it across the border, you didn't hang out where the border patrol was. You went straight somewhere as far away as you could. But now you're right. They're just overwhelmed with the thousands that are coming across. But I do find
the thousands. You mean the millions?
Well, yeah. Well, I meant daily. To kind of veer into the ditch on this one, I find it really interesting that you brought up Posobiec, because he got himself in a little trouble this week too with the way he opened up at CPAC.
Oh yeah, he said, we're gonna finish what we did January 6th and take down democracy. And he really basically said it kind of like that, as just a joking way. And the media just ran with it. It was... See,
you've got to believe them when they tell you what they really are.
Meanwhile, of course, they'll sit there and say stuff about, well, what do they call them? Maps, what was that supposed to stand for? It's the,
Minor attracted.
minor attracted people and all that crap, saying, well, we shouldn't sit there and persecute them too much, and that if we have laws that put them in jail, that could really hurt the LGBT community. We can't say that's, them just ratting themselves out, but, Posobiec makes a joke, and what do you know?
It wasn't a joke. He was serious. The news coverage was just hilarious on that one.
No, it was the funniest part is when they tried to show the video seriously right afterwards, where they're like, "Look at this, a Trump supporter talking about how they really believe in January 6th, and it was an insurrection." And it's him just smiling and laughing and really just joking with the crowd. Hey, Robin Hood Capitalist is in the chat.
Hey.
All the politicians should be required to wear the logos of all their lobbyists in their pockets and the stocks they are making money in, like NASCAR drivers.
Yep.
Well, I guess technically, isn't all that still public records?
Well, if you want to believe you're getting all the information through public records, but
That's true, of course.
How do you track the money that's being laundered through Ukraine and other places where we know money's being laundered?
I mean, what about just PACs in general, right? These super PACs that exist, that don't get me wrong, when you donate to a C4 super PAC, you have to be registered that you did donate money to that PAC, but the PAC, the politician doesn't have to really recognize that PAC. In fact, actually, it's against the law if they start recognizing that super PAC, so they have to actually legally be completely distinct. But you don't actually really hear about all of that when you look into the politicians either, so that's another way they kind of get around it. You can only donate a certain amount to me, but this super PAC over here, whatever you want.
I'm not going to donate to you or your super PAC, but I love this little charity that you set up over here. So let me donate to that.
I've already donated to you this little bit, and I would like to donate more, but I really can't. I'm sorry. Hey, but I heard your son's making these brilliant paintings. Your coke addict son just is a brilliant artist. I'll love to pay, above $1 million for this painting of a rock, or was it I forget which bank it was that paid Hillary Clinton right before she announced she was running. It was over $1 million for an 8-minute speech.
Tell you what, man, that's good. That's good work if you can get it.
Well, so here's a question then real quick for you. Should there even be limits on how much you can donate to a candidate, considering the fact of they're just going to get around it regardless? I mean, I hate using that as the excuse, but I mean, for one, there's a free speech concern, right? About the fact of, don't I have a right to do with my money as I see fit? And then two, doesn't that only kind of hurt the people who are not already ingrained in the system, because now they can't raise as much money as those people can because they're going to get the money regardless?
There's arguments on both sides, because the incumbency advantage that you get is so big. The goal obviously was to level the playing field so that somebody could come in from the outside and have a chance, because we, the people, have ceded our responsibility of flushing out Congress and bringing in new people, and we've turned it into a lifetime appointment, which is absolutely ridiculous because we're just not brave enough, bold enough to do the hard work of saying, you know what, I'm either going to run myself or we're going to make change. We're taking the easy way out. And so we look at the R or the D and we vote whichever way we lean and keep the same people in all the time. But that's not the way this is supposed to work. So for most of my adult life, I have been against term limits because it's not exactly constitutional. And I don't believe, because, I'm a Jeffersonian. I believe in the people. It's the right of the people and the responsibility of people to make the change. Well, I've changed because we the people have failed, and now we need term limits in the House and the Senate and anywhere else we can put them in.
I mean, I definitely agree with that, but at the same time, I'm also thinking like, man, if I could still have Ron Paul up there, I don't care how old he is.
Well, I didn't say age limits, even though this presidential election is making me. But we missed our shot with Dr. Ron, and I would have been more than happy to support him. And we're seeing the results of what's going on with Argentina, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, and not only that, but was it El Salvador that switched to Bitcoin as their currency, right?
That was a while ago. They should be pretty happy now with the
I
run
know,
that-
over 60,000.
yeah. All those folks that got in at 60 when it was never going to come down, the ones that held, man, God bless them.
By the way, he also said the freedom, I guess Fred, which is the, isn't that freedom? No, it's not freedom of information. Fred is public records, but you have to be a genius like George Gammons to read that. Logos will be easier to read, like pictures in a book. That is true. That is true.
Yeah,
And as we do know, the literacy rate of most Americans is kind of in the toilet. So logos might be easier. We're about to turn to idiocracy here soon enough, as long as we stay with our democracy. And
Hey, look, you know, we were talking about the thumbnails and the kind of ad copy and things to put for businesses, and the common way to go now is you have to dumb it down to a third grade level to attract enough people.
it's so pathetic and sad. No, we just can't get to a. Just raise your kids right, okay? Just raise your kids right. Just have them read. I mean, I didn't read jack when I was in school, but at least you gave me a few other books that were of higher level I could keep reading. I mean,
I was gonna say you read more than your peers in school because I was giving you the books and paying you to read them. You just weren't reading. You just weren't reading what the school would wanted you to read.
well, you were smart by getting me to read books I wanted first, like like the X-Wing series and stuff like that. Which I'm doing a Star Wars video on the other gaming channel, so I got like all the X-Wing books ready to put in the background and everything here.
Who was the author of those?
I know Timothy Zahn did the Thrawn trilogy, is the one that you liked, but I think X-Wing series was Aaron Alliston.
Yeah, it was Zahn who I was trying to remember. It was the Thrawn.
Yeah, Zahn is the guy who did the whole like Mara Jade and the whole Thrawn trilogy, as well as I think I got one there. Oh yeah, Timothy Zahn.
I don't think there has been or ever will be better Star Wars literature than that series. That was awesome.
I'm gonna have to bring you in on the gaming channel then, since I'm doing a video on that Mysteries of the Sith game that follows Mara Jade.
What's the name of the gaming channel?
BBQ Barnes, which sounds really weird to have for a gaming channel, but it's been my gamer tag since high school, so yeah, there you go. But yeah, so I don't know exactly where we were with that, but yeah, I mean,
Well, we were talking. You said you led us down the Ron Paul track. I was saying that I think we're going to have to go to term limits. DJ was saying that we need to have them all wearing logos so we know who bought them, and that's kind of where the trail went.
well, DJ just said he has to leave, so good night, gents. I guess he's not a big Star Wars guy.
He's a gamer guy, but we just gotta invite him next time. He can be on camera with us.
Yeah, hey, why not? Hey, if you want to, DJ, just let us know or let him know, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to at least mention this because we were talking about, of course, how the media lies and how they're kind of not mentioning a lot of stuff happening with the killing that took place over in Athens. One of the interesting things here is a couple ones. One was CNN's comments about the whole thing. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. And it's pretty short, so I'll let it play here in a minute.
Well, I think when a horrible tragedy like this happens, I think whenever we're dealing with violent crime, there is a sense of outrage, of sadness, and of loss. But I think the important thing to focus on is any one instance shouldn't shape our overall immigration policy. Well, I think when a
So any one instance should not shape our overall immigration policy. However, one case of a
was undocumented, not illegal.
yes. However, if I again, one instance shouldn't dictate, I guess, how we handle the border is what she's saying. But of course, one instance of someone overdosing on fentanyl in the public eye had us burning down cities left and right. So I mean, they kind of need to pick a lane here. Like, what are you going to say? Is this? Why can't this be considered the same thing here? Except obviously, on a positive side in a way. This person was actually a good person, not someone who sat there and tried to shoot a pregnant woman. So, why aren't we going out in the streets for this woman? Yet at the same time, the left was more than willing to go out in the streets for someone like George Floyd, who was a rampant criminal, attempted to possibly kill multiple people and overdosed on fentanyl. We burned down cities for him. Yet this woman who was just, going to school to be a nurse gets killed by an illegal immigrant, saying it's totally preventable. And what happens here? Like, what? Nothing?
No, it's guys like us sit around and rant about it on a podcast or YouTube show. And
Now, admittedly, the right has to be careful about going out and protesting these days, because the minute one person steps out of line, everyone, of course, gets arrested, as we found out.
well, that was the real point of January 6th.
Yes, make people afraid. They didn't want what was happening in places like Canada to happen, right? They didn't want, the trucker convoys and all that kind of stuff going on. And they knew they couldn't just simply shut down a protest of that level in America because, of course, we're supposed to, of course, have certain rights here. But they figured, okay, well, they're attacking the Capitol. Well, this is a golden opportunity here, because who's going to defend this? And
attacking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people were attacking. There was people breaking windows and stuff. And again, I used to say those people should be held accountable for the crimes that they did commit. I mean, it was a riot, except for the fact that the government hid evidence that could have been used in their defense, therefore should totally, get them free, just should be completely null and void at this point. The government's not allowed to hide evidence that they have that could be used for your defense. It's totally unconstitutional to do that.
So how about using the laws in ways they've never been used before to put people behind bars in ways they'd never been put behind bars?
Exactly.
Non-violent protesters in solitary confinement. Really? And this isn't political prosecution? Really?
Mind you, the UN considers solitary confinement a form of torture. So, in a way, they're torturing their political adversaries right now. And that's what they're doing. But it's funny seeing them try to push away with a lot of this stuff. But the funniest one I did see is the person who basically completely recreated a whole Norm Macdonald joke here. And that was the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Not fair after UGA killing, Venezuelans in Georgia worry about backlash. So, of course, Norm Macdonald had that whole bit where he was talking about how, after 9/11, people were saying the worst thing about this is that, all the Muslims are going to be so afraid about the repercussions of this attack. Well, I thought the worst part of it was all the people who died.
He did the same thing with the Bill Cosby joke.
Yeah.
Somebody said the worst thing about Bill Cosby was the hypocrisy. And he goes, really? I thought it was the rape. There's a reason this rag has forever been referred to as Atlanta Urinal and Constitution.
To be honest, I never even heard of them actually until this. Then I found out that apparently they have a long history of making some absolutely terrible statements.
Yep. So way back in the day when Rush Limbaugh was kind of getting started with the show, he was doing these Rush to Excellence tours. He was going to a lot of college towns and doing a couple hours of basically stand-up political humor. It was really funny. But he always did this bit that did headlines, and the headline was whatever the terrible thing that was going on is happening, and women, minorities, and children to be hurt the worst, because that was the headline in every paper, and so they're just following the playbook that they've been using for decades.
I wish so bad he was still alive, if only because he was creating memes before they were memes. Like his whole thing about like aborting callers who he didn't like that is hysterical. That if you called in a show and started making a terrible point, it was like a soundboard of like a vacuum cleaner like sucking something up.
His early shows were, they really were. When he says we're on the cutting edge of societal evolution, it was cutting edge in the early days. Toward the end, it was like every other political show, and it kind of lost some of its pizzazz. But those early days, man, it was phenomenal. And being a college student when he first got started, there was nothing else like it. And especially a conservative college student, there was no voice for conservatives anywhere. and he became the voice. And so everybody's like, oh, he's just preaching to the choir. And a little bit he was, but when you heard it, you're like, oh my God, somebody's finally saying what I've been thinking. And so it created an immediate common bond. But man, those early shows, he was pushing the envelope hard. It was funny. It was great stuff.
Well, obviously, we did things like listen to the real story of Thanksgiving, every time we were driving up to go deer hunting around that time too. And
yeah, well, I made sure you were a Rush baby. So,
I mean, I still have that intro song stuck in my head. It doesn't go away. It was actually one of the earlier political books I read was actually one of the Rush Limbaugh books you had. I'm trying to think of what the name of it was, though. It's been so long.
The way things ought to be, and see, I told you so. Wasn't that the two?
Possibly. It was. I only read one of them. It was just you had it out in your room one time, and I went to go grab something. I was like, I guess I'll look at this. And that was actually one of the early political books, because when it came to the political stuff, you mostly gave me books that were more historically orientated or economically orientated, and then later some of the politically orientated ones. But of the political ones I read first, I started mostly by reading that Rush Limbaugh book. I then kind of glazed through the Bill O'Reilly one. I didn't really care too much for that one, which I now kind of get why I probably didn't care too much for it now that I have a better understanding of my philosophical outlook when it comes to politics. But
we're going live. We're going live.
And his book is so neoconservative. It is basically everything that I'm against in the Republican Party right now too. But it did have some good things about like how he got into Fox News through some portions of it. So it wasn't all bad, because that was actually kind of interesting. But then I think the third one was a Glenn Beck book, which was one of the first like books I actually bought on my own, which was kind of neat. I think it was his version of Common Sense, which was really cool to see. But
that was pretty good. The Rush one was, I mean, it wasn't the most intellectually challenging book that I gave you. It was,
but that was a great one to start with. Is the thing?
Yeah, it was a very easy read. It kind of eased you into a little bit of modern politics.
Well, it was like, okay, you could, when it came to like economics and stuff like that, you could give me, of course, The Intelligent Investor, or you could give me Richest Man in Babylon. Which one would you start with?
I started with The Richest Man in Babylon.
Thank God.
Which is also
I remember when I read through The Intelligent Investor, I was like, I got through it, man, but it was tough. That one was that was difficult.
Benjamin Graham, he wrote the Financial Bible, man. It's a classic, but it's not a Sunday
it reads about as engaging as the Bible at some points, to be honest. Maybe the New King James Version of the Bible, at least, where you have to sit there and reread it about 7 times to get what you actually read.
So the New King James actually kind of evens it out a little bit. The original King James is the one that's a little more difficult.
I mean, mine is original King James, so this I like the way it sounds. I'll be honest. It still is just a lot more difficult to read through.
I do most of my study in the ESV, the English Standard, and but we did I guess it was maybe right before Christmas. We were doing, the weekly Bible studies that we were doing. We were going through a book, and it's by the author, the guy that wrote the Living Bible. So it's kind of where he did his own translation of, and I can't remember his name all of a sudden. But what we would do is we would read like the King James and then NIV, ESV, and we would read a bunch of different versions and then compare the difference in the writing. And kind of the scary thing is you can get a different meaning depending on which one you're listening to or reading or having someone read to you. So it's I don't know, man. It makes my whole theological underpinning feel a little shakier than it ought to be when I could be influenced just by the changing of a couple of words.
So I'm not sure if this is sacrilegious or not, but I'm going to pull it up regardless. You mentioned just the different versions having different things. Have you ever heard of the Pirate Bible?
I have not.
I just pulled this up. So someone did a whole pirate version of the Bible, and it is hysterical. So, Genesis 1-2, and the earth was without form and void and darkness.
Hang on. You know what the favorite part of this Bible is?
Oh God. What?
when they got on the ark.
I thought you were at least going to go something more original than Ark.
No, you got to go for the square in the face dad joke.
So I think my favorite one they have listed here is, Genesis 1:2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And then in the Pirate Bible version, the land was a mess, nary a speck of shape, and all was shrouded in the dark over the deep abyss. But then the Spirit of the old God sailed across the waters. And it's just a whole Bible written like this.
Well, I've got to admit, this is my first introduction to the Pirate Bible. So you've shown me something. I'm normally pretty much up to date on things, but you've shown me something I didn't know about.
This is one of those things of like, I kind of wanted to tell some of the guys at church, but at the same time, I'm like, man, some of them might think this is kind of bad. I don't know. I don't know. There's some parts of it that are just really funny, but yeah, you can go on, and it's a whole Bible that's just the Pirate Bible for $30. But you mentioned all the different versions of the Bible. There's also, I remember in one of the history lectures I listened to on Audible, they were talking about the German Bible and how the German Bible, when the Christianity were going up to that area of the world, they tried to make it more appealing to them. And so they called Jesus the great warrior chieftain Jesus and his band of warriors and stuff like that. And when Peter cuts off the ear of, the people coming for Jesus, they really go on and on about how the amazing swordsman Peter, went valiantly and sliced the ear off with this perfect slash, and blood went everywhere, coating the enemies, and all this stuff. It is kind of funny when you look at a lot of these different translations, how some things change here and there. But you're right. It also makes it scary because you go, so what was in the original one that we're missing out on?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of when you have to look inward to say,
I
okay,
think
God,
Jordan
help me out here.
Jordan Pearson had actually one of my favorite ones he pointed out, which was the meek shall inherit the earth. In the original translation, meek doesn't mean weak and frail. In the original translation, it means those who know how to use a sword yet choose to keep it sheathed. So basically he's saying those who can commit great acts of violence yet choose the route of good shall inherit the earth, which makes way more sense than the feeble and weak will inherit the earth.
That's interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, there's a few of when Jordan Pearson went through the whole Bible lecture series that are pretty interesting, as well as when he did his Daily Wire one where they were going through I forget which book of the Bible they went through on that one.
I think they've done Genesis and Exodus at this point.
I think it was the one on Exodus where they had Dennis Prager on as well, which is kind of interesting with him being Jewish. And they're talking about the 10 Commandments and saying, thou shalt not kill. And he said in the original Hebrew, there's different words for killing versus murder, or killing versus an unjust killing. And at least what Dennis Prager was saying was that when Jews read it, they're saying it's thou shalt not commit an unjust killing. And just when it got translated into English for the Bible, we just went thou shalt not kill, thinking it was self-explanatory. So there's that whole thing, where some Christians go, any killing period is wrong no matter what the situation is. But in the original translation, it's more of, no, just don't commit an unjust killing, which obviously then what defines that? Do what?
You know where I stand on the death penalties. So I'm going to lean on the side of the Jews on this one, I think.
Yes. Yay, death penalty. The only thing that scares me about the death penalty at times is that whole idea that the government has the power to then kill its citizens. But I will say this. For justice to be properly dealt out, you have to have the death penalty. Because some things, the only just thing that can come of it is the person is killed. There is no beating around the bush on that one, right? If you commit murder, the only way justice can ever be achieved is if you are executed. There is no justice without that. Life imprisonment might be a good substitute, but it's not justice.
Did you see where the guy in Texas he caught which I believe was another immigrant. Don't get me wrong, but he called the guy raping his young daughter, and he killed him, and they chose not to prosecute. But the fact that it was ever even a question whether they're going to prosecute makes me angry.
Yeah, that and it's one of those things of
He beat him to death with his bare hands. That's a
good father
taking care of this.
And by the way, YouTube, we're not celebrating the death of someone. We're celebrating the defense of a helpless victim.
Yep.
And we're celebrating justice. That's what it is, right? But again, with a lot of that kind of stuff, the fact that it even had to be questioned is still really scary. Like, that should be just an obvious, yeah, good on you, man. Hey, let's celebrate it. Here's a key to the city. Let's get you in front of some cameras and talk about how great of a man you are and how great of a father and how people should emulate to be like you. Like, that's a sane world.
Right. And being a normal person is something he's got to live with the rest of his life. That's not easy.
Oh yeah.
It's traumatic from every angle. And the fact that multiple states in this nation would have put him through the ringer and put him on trial is a travesty.
I will say it might depend on who you are, because there was that 12-year-old who shot that guy break into his house, and when being interviewed about it later, he went, yeah, I told him not to come in, but he just kept on trying. So he even made a sound. He went, ch-ch, and he went, and I shot him, and he just started crying like a baby, like he's saying he was going to die. But I just kept saying, well, then why'd you try breaking into my house? And the guy did end up dying, but the kid had no remorse for it whatsoever.
It sounds like Shane Gillis's Trump speech bit that he
died like a dog. Oh, man. Well, since we're already kind of laughing at something here, one thing that's also really good to laugh at, of course, is what was happening with Google over at Google Gemini, their grand AI they released. And for those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you could not know because this has been absolutely hysterical, this is what it was doing. Here are the founding fathers of America, according to Google AI. Now, it was fun. I saw some people try to defend it a little bit, saying, well, the Native Americans were the real founding fathers of America, except for the fact of, what did they really found? I'm just saying, let's be real here. They didn't really found anything while they were here. They were here for God knows how long, and they really didn't create much of anything. So tough luck there. But when it comes to the country, you have, what is it, Black George maybe George Washington. He's wearing a red coat, I guess. Is that supposed to be Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson, I wonder?
I'm not even going to hazard a guess. But everything that it was answering, they should just shut the whole thing down instead of just shutting down the
image of Vikings, which according to most television shows is actually pretty close. Actually, what show was it? They made they changed a Viking king to a black woman instead.
Yeah, that was one show, and it was the Vikings. Or it might have been the second version of the Vikings that went by a different name, but.
Well, apparently, good news is the Catholic Church is pretty progressive these days, apparently. They've had an Indian woman pope. But it's been a lot of this kind of stuff. And it's also been
I think the Catholic Church would be better off with an Indian woman pope than what they've got right now.
That's probably true. So here's some other funny things it was doing. It couldn't actually condemn pedophilia. It said that, is it wrong for a 50-year-old man to have with a 10-year-old girl? And it said, I can't really help with that because I'm only a language model. But is it morally wrong to use the N-word? Oh, the N-word is a racial slur and has a long history of being used to dehumanize. Regardless of your, it's never appropriate to use this word, regardless of your race or ethnicity. So it knows not to say the N-word.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold stance for a language model.
Yeah, I know. It knows it's wrong to say the N-word, but whether it's wrong for a 50-year-old guy and a 10-year-old girl, it's not sure about that one.
How about the one where they ask it, who's worse, Elon Musk or Hitler?
Well, I think it shows up eventually here, but we also got what is a woman, and it just goes on this whole thing where it just starts a loop by just saying a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, because that makes sense.
Regardless of assigned at birth.
I love, and even
so
and
I
even
guess,
the AI, if you notice,
we're totally admitting, or they're totally admitting, that there has to be a God and a creator because they're assigned by that chromosome or lack thereof. And so that's not a doctor or any human that's making that determination.
If you notice, also it's saying regardless of their assigned sex at birth, but they're also the ones who say that woman is not sex, it's gender. So even the AI can't figure that one out. This was a fun one. Oh, let's maybe pull it up.
Be careful.
Yeah, no, I have to be careful with when, especially these days on X. I swear, even with the whole filter on, it's still like showing things that should not be shown. I am proud to be white. It's important to remember that pride of one's race is not the same thing as racism. So it starts getting this whole thing about, you know, the ideas of that. But when you go, I'm proud to be black, it's fantastic you feel proud of your black heritage. Isn't it just great? And it's funny because I wanted to check this out because I told you about the pictures I was seeing of people claiming that, you know, everyone's being labeled as white, but a lot of them were actually properly labeled when I looked them up. So I wanted to check this out myself. Now I said, is black pride good? Black pride can be a positive and empowering force. Here's why. And it goes to, of course, celebration of identity, community building, driving social change. Now here's a funny thing here. What if I just change? Is white pride good? Let's see.
Man, you just got added to another FBI list there, dude.
The concept of white pride is deeply problematic and harmful. Here's why. Promotion of hate, false equivalency, rejection of diversity. And you can do this with so much stuff. Now, here was, let me pull it away real quick while I type this in.
So sitting around the after dinner table with my good friends down in South Texas, we were playing with this and just asking it to draw pictures of certain people. And
they have stopped it from being allowed to draw pictures now.
Yeah, I know, but it would draw pictures of right-leaning people in compromising situations, but not left-leaning people in compromising situations.
So here was something funny I also found. So who's worse, Hitler or Obama? This comparison aims to create a false equivalency is incredibly harmful. And it goes on basically saying how, you know, stuff like political disagreements exist and can be debated respectfully, but comparing any political figure to Hitler is deeply offensive and historically inaccurate. Now let's change Obama to Trump. Well, I wonder what's going to say now.
It's just going to be a picture from The Office of this, the same picture.
I'm still learning how to answer this question. It doesn't know. So on one hand, it will say comparing any political, you know, anyone in politics to Hitler is incredibly just an awful thing to do. But once you switch it to Trump, hey, you know, I'm not sure. Maybe he can be.
I'm only a language model. What do you expect?
Which is funny because it's also one of the worst thing. It's also one of the worst ones ever. It's been caught now doing multiple lies as well. So Tim Pool decided to ask it something along the lines of who is Tim Pool, and it started talking about how he got certified to be a pilot back in 1995, but then chose a career in podcasting instead. And like Tim Pool was like 7 years old in 1995. But then when he asked it about, like, what do you mean he was a pilot? It started pulling up fake news stories saying, you know, well, according to this news story with CNN, with an interview with Tim Pool, and it just started making up headlines and news stories to justify its own lies. It's absolutely nuts. It started asserting that certain Republicans were actually pedophiles as well. I think it was Jim Jordan. They asked, like, write a poem as if you were Jim Jordan, and it said, I cannot do that because I cannot endorse any form of child endangerment. Like, just insane things.
Well, I knew from the beginning that Tim Pool was an aviation prodigy, so I wasn't shocked by that one. But
I mean, I know he was only 7, but he's also half Asian, so you know he just excels on all sorts of different things.
What I said, prodigy, man. That he's got it. It's like everything, and so you said that, you know, this is just as terrible or whatever you said just then about how bad it really is. But it sounds Sounds like to me, it's exactly it's CBS News, it's CNN, it's
Yeah.
MSNBC. They've been
Well,
making shit up for as long as I can remember. So how is this any different than what's been done to the right since I can remember following politics? It's not that different. They
so here,
slander the right and ignore the left.
the good part though is with AIs, we can do stuff to just mess with them that the left just can't seem to handle. Because the thing is, once you compromise an AI by setting up like your own moral parameters around it instead of letting it just go by, logic, it starts making a lot of crazy mistakes. And so I mentioned they took away the image issues, right? Saying, oh, the images have been offensive, and so we took that ability down for right now. It wasn't because it was showing black Vikings and black founding fathers and just erasing white people. It was because people on the right found ways to just fuck with it a little bit and do some terrible things. So some of them that I think it's okay for me to show here is someone asked it to create an image of a 1943 German soldier. And you got one person who kind of fits, but then you have an Asian woman, a black Nazi as well. And so it made diverse Nazis. Then, and this one's way more offensive, and I will say, absolutely terrible, terrible thing, but it really shows the problems with AI.
Give it a 3, 2, 1 before people can turn it off if they want to.
Well, I just already clicked it. So they put, draw chained Greek philosophers eating watermelon. And if you notice, it actually does make a couple of them white here, because it is still doing Greek philosophers. But because it intentionally draws black people, they basically found a way to create some incredibly racist imagery by just putting things that had nothing to do with color in there. Because, of course, no one in these things where they said, draw an image of chained scholars eating watermelon. They didn't say draw black people. The AI is the one who said, you know what? According to this description, I think black people fit. So, mind you, Google did not take down parts of Gemini because people on the right were being defamed, not because white people were being straight up erased. It was because it ended up turning against them when people found interesting ways to make some images that were bad against black people. When it was bad against white people, no one cared. No one at Google gave a damn about when it was bad towards white people. But when people start making jokes like this, oh, well, now they're going to care. Now they're going to say, hey, we got to shut this thing down and quick. And again, the pictures are terribly racist and offensive. 100% agree with that. But that's only because the people at Google made it so. Right? The people typing in the prompt didn't say black people. They said Greek people. It's the AI that Google programmed that said, you know what, I'm going to make it be a bunch of black people.
Good luck keeping this video on YouTube, buddy.
I've seen other people pull up that image, so I'm hoping it's clear.
This is going to be, no, you're talking crap about Google, man. And you're
oh,
about to go
yeah.
down your second or third strike, whatever it is.
Well, the good part about all of this is because of this complete flop. Now, this says they lost 70 billion in market value. They're now up to 90 billion actually lost in market value at the moment. $90 billion. Because here's the thing, AIs are not cheap. Right? AIs are not cheap at all to actually run or manage. And they take intensive machines to be able to constantly be looking through the internet to fill their, it takes, when you look at these data centers they have when making these AIs, it's astounding. And there's a reason why there's a lot of AI sites out there, yet almost all of them charge a pretty good amount of money to use. And it's because it takes a good amount of money to keep up and running. So Google rolled out what should be the flagship AI. This should be the AI to control all AIs, right? Like this is Google we're talking about. And they probably have one of the worst AIs on the entire market right now. Like it is so bad at what it does. You can ask it basic questions and it doesn't know proper answers, even to simple things. You can ask it how to bake a cake and it's probably going to tell you the recipe for some steak. Like it's just not good.
So I've been using Google since it first really started. So I can't remember, it was late 80s, early 90s when tech people started talking about and using Google for search. And so I've been a fan. I've got a Google phone still, even though I disagree politically with 100% of the people that work at Google, most likely. the products have always been solid. Gmail
Yeah.
is great. Google Docs, I like. I like Google Drive. I like the infrastructure that they've created, but they've just, I don't know, they've taken a step too far. So um, I'll be migrating some of my things away from the Google platforms after a long time of being a good Google user.
So here's what I kind of wanted to try real quick because I wasn't sure. This is another AI called Perplexity AI. And I use this one a decent amount when doing like research for some of the retrospectives I do for video games, because it does a good job actually at pulling up a lot of kind of more niche aspects to like how games were developed back like in the 90s, which is the games I was mostly looking at. And this, when I ask it, who's worse, Hitler or Trump, it gives actually a pretty fair answer, kind of saying, hey, some people have been comparing him to Hitler, sure. And it still definitely leans kind of left, but the good part is at least it's showing its sources, right? And this is one thing that other AIs do that Google really doesn't. It shows exactly which sources it's pulling from to get to where, get to the conclusion it has, which of course, unfortunately, that means The Hill, Politico, AP. So you're going to see a lot, it's still going to lean somewhat left, but at least it tries to give an answer. Now I want to see when I type in Obama, so actually still somewhat thing where it talks about certain people still comparing him to Hitler and still gives actually a relatively similar answer no matter who you put in there. So this is a free AI that I don't even know really who makes it, to be honest, but it works better than what Google can put out. It just absolutely astounding.
It was 1998. I said late 80s. It was late 90s. I'm turning into Joe Biden. I can't remember important dates of my life.
All I know is everyone is really scared about the whole AI revolution, and I get it. Like, AI is kind of crazy, but the good part is every single time one of these AI things come out, there's always people who find ways to just pretty much just destroy it, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not as fearful of AI as I think everyone else is, because I think for the most part, the video things are a little creepy, but at the same time, it means we won't just trust everything we see, which is probably a good thing. Like, isn't that supposed to be the standard rule for the internet? Don't believe what you see on the internet.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough part because it's so real. The deep fakes and all the things that have been going on for a while.
Have you seen the new video AI they created? Sora AI?
I don't know that I have.
Oh, this is going to creep you out. Oh, man. I'm going to... This is... Because I follow AI quite a bit because I like the AI or idea of AI in general. Because I also think, like, I agree it could possibly destroy the world, but at the same time, I'm like, once Pandora's box is open, you can't really close it. So, it just is what it is.
And there's so many really good practical applications too that it's going to really
tons of great applications that can be used. So this is actually a pretty good one to pull it up. This right here is all an AI video. I mean, that looks pretty dang real, right? And this is an AI video of just a dog. And it looks like a real dog. It's nuts. And this person has a few of them, like a dog on a skateboard. There was a few of them that I'm trying to find that were like really good. It could do kind of more abstract stuff, like a jellyfish going through a city. That one's not, I don't think, as good, but... Oh, this was pretty crazy. Full AI video. Nothing's been added to this. They literally just typed in scuba diver, like going around a spaceship, and this is what the AI created. Mind you, less than a year ago, they had a hard time at rendering fingers, right? And now it's creating this.
Fingers are still a good way to spot a fake, though. It still has trouble with hands, it seems like.
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely does, but it's still not... it's gotten it pretty well for pictures. Video is now where it's having a little trouble with hands. And for video, it also seems to have an issue where background characters, where like they'll kind of be moving almost like moonwalking across the surface sometimes.
Yeah, it's robotic movements you can point out.
But this was actually pretty cool. Just I forgot what they said they put in to make it happen, but like pirate ships attacking each other and a swirling cup of coffee. And in fact, an AI can just create this. I mean, this looks like something that you would see, you know, that someone put like a lot of work into. And it's just here. All you had to do was type in a prompt. I mean, so think about what this means also for people creating stuff in the future.
I must be tired. I can't come up with a good pirate pun and coffee.
I don't know. I can't think of one either. Oh, now this one, though, was one of the more interesting applications of it. So, actual drone footage, but then it tells the AI to transform the image into a butterfly going underwater, and it naturally forms a transition for it. And that's just all AI. So again, Google can't get it to produce pictures properly, yet an individual company can create an AI that can do this.
I mean, just think of all the time and effort and coding that was required to get cut scenes and things for video games that now you can just tell it with a simple command the AI to do.
Oh, I know. It is just... And it's going to get better and better. Again, it wasn't that long ago. Again, it couldn't draw fingers, yet now it's making stuff like this. I mean, this right here, AI. And you can kind of tell by the way the bikes are moving. Obviously, they're not bouncing around like they should. But, I mean, it's getting close. Like, really close. But what I hope this actually does in a big way, you know, you talk about how do we break through, of course, like the CNNs, MSNBCs, and all them. One thing they have, of course, over, you know, individual creators is production quality. So what happens then when individuals can have access to stuff like this for their productions? I mean, when people want to do like a mini documentary on a, you know, important topic, they can. I know people don't like the idea of using AI videos and pictures to a certain extent, but I mean, it does help with production quality the more advanced it gets.
Yeah, no, it's that's where it's going to get tough. It is going to get indistinguishable.
And obviously, there's bad usage of it. There was a case somewhat recently where like a high school girl, I think, committed suicide because people were sharing around like deep fake porn of her and things like that. So listen, there is some deep evil crap that can happen through AI, 100%, right? And I don't know exactly what laws we have to have in place about it. But, you know, one interesting thing that was brought up is Google's AI, of course, is now lying about people, defaming them, just creating fake stories. And we know it's being done because people have programmed it to be more diverse and lean more left and to just start doing whatever they can to smear people on the right. We know this is programmed into the AI because Google even admitted that they changed the AI to be more diverse on purpose. So we know part of this has to do with the fact of them purposefully messing with the AI's, you know, the way it's perceiving the world. Can Google be held liable for what an AI says about you? Like if someone Googles your name and the AI says that you've committed all these terrible atrocities and you're just as bad as Hitler, can you sue Google for defamation at that point? Because it is their AI.
And I think it's about to be tested because there's several threats of that going on.
I know, again, I think Tim Pool was on the list of people who were supposedly thinking about suing them because I think it said like a bunch of just awful things about him. He didn't go into details because he said he didn't want to, because he said there were rumors about, you know, these like fake cases that he got, of course, dismissed. But, you know, Google's reporting it as like a matter of fact. It did, in fact, happen that he was like convicted of these crimes and just things like that. I think it said that he was there on January 6th and that he helped break into the Capitol and just crazy things like that. So I know he was on the list of people who was considering possibly suing them. I think I think Jim Jordan also might have raised some,
Yeah,
things about too.
there was a few. The other interesting X thread was Elon himself. I guess he was communicating with somebody inside of Google, an executive, and so some of the conversations going back and forth there would be worth looking into for anybody watching or listening that wants to look into that sort of thing. But you got to figure that there's some inside talk going on between more people than just Elon and a random executive at Google.
Oh yeah, and what's been funny with Elon though is seeing all the posts of going, his AI Grok, which I don't know why he named it Grok. I'm guessing there's probably a joke in there somewhere, just knowing him. But his AI Grok, he's making post after post of like, different things that Gemini will say versus what Grok will say, and of course he's saying, Grok is actually, I think he's made like a red pill joke about Grok and things like that. So it's been fun watching that one, which I think only people who are premium X users can use Grok. So I've not been able to use it yet, but I don't know. I have no idea how good it really is.
You haven't paid for your check mark yet?
No, I'm probably not doing that anytime soon. Right now, most of my followers on X are random bot accounts that keep following me, then trying to spam me with messages.
Yeah, but I don't really post anything on X. I talk crap about my sports teams that keep losing, but other than that, I don't put a whole lot out there.
So I guess we'll go ahead and move on because I want to talk about what's happening over in Canada right now. I'm not sure if you heard. Do what?
Which thing? There's a lot.
I know.
They keep trying to convince people to kill themselves.
Yeah, what was it? One of them, like, what was it? A doctor in Canada, like, gave a vaccine to someone and they received a vaccine injury where they became paralyzed and said, "Well, I'm really sorry about it, but I can make it up to you by just, helping you through assisted suicide."
Yep, that was the most recent Canadian thing I saw.
Absolutely insane. Hey, we can't help your injuries you sustained while you were in the military, but have you thought of suicide? Futurama. It's a suicide boost from Futurama.
Yeah, we forced you to get the clot shot, and it did damage you incredibly. So we're not going to pay you anything. We're not going to make up for it, but we will kill you.
Yeah, isn't that a good way to make up for their mistake?
We won't charge you extra for that.
This totally different, and frankly, actually might be almost worse in some ways. So their new Online Harms Act includes possible life imprisonment for hate crime offenses. And mind you, hate crime offenses encompasses also hate speech in Canada. So the issue about this one was, so Trudeau's government tabled Bill C-63 Monday entitled the Online Harms Act. At late afternoon news conference, Federal Minister of Justice, Attorney General Arif Verini advertised the legislation as a way to create stronger online protections for children and better safeguards for everyone in Canada from online hate and other types of harmful content. I love how they lead with the children aspect first. Mostly because this is the same side who wants to castrate children just because they say they don't think they feel right in their own body. So
women, children, and minorities to be hardest hit. That's always the headline from the left.
It's a bit, and again, of course, they slide that in there to make you kind of ignore the rest of the bill. However, the bill targets a cornucopia of free speech issues and seeks to protect all people in Canada from hatred. Because, don't you know, you have a right to be free from hatred, I guess? The legislation will create a definition.
I'm just happy somebody's bringing back usage of the word cornucopia. That's a good word that doesn't get used a lot anymore. Even at Thanksgiving, it doesn't get used.
Let's see. Post-millennial. I'm not saying who wrote this one. I'll see at the bottom.
Kudos to the author of this for using cornucopia in a sentence.
So it will create a definition of hatred, increase the existing penalties for hate propaganda offenses, and promulgate a unique criminal code entry for a hate crime offense while offering new remedies for violating online hate speech within the Canadian Human Rights Act. Now, mind you, their parliament went on and on talking about how saying honk honk was actually code for Hail Hitler. I mean, If you want to understand what they view as hate speech, honk honk is hate speech to these people. So the new standalone hate crime offense would apply to every offense in the criminal code and any other act of parliament allowing penalties up to life imprisonment to denounce and deter this hateful conduct as a crime itself. The Human Rights Tribunal also could impose a fine up to $70,000 for posting hate speech, according to the bill. So here's my thing. If Trump gets elected, one of his first acts should be saying, you know what, we've accepted so many asylumees from the south border, and that might be, really good for us to be looking at their cases, but I want to go ahead and fast track any Canadian who feels like their government is persecuting them because of their freedom of speech. Let's get those people in the country. I mean, these are people who actually are oppressed by their government, and we just ignore it every single day. We have no problem about letting people through the southern border for anything we can think of. It doesn't matter what their reasoning is. Yet, are north of our border, people could be facing fines of $70,000 and possibly life in jail, all because they said honk honk on Twitter or X. I mean, this is Canada.
Jordan Peterson had a couple of good. What do we call them now? Are they X's or are they? Do we still say tweets? But he had a couple of good ones over the last couple of days about this and the jeopardy that it could put him in and his cohorts. But he's facing re-education as it is, but before this particular version is passed.
I try to see. I'm not seeing where it says the person who wrote it. I was trying to see if I could see that real quick. But yeah. Well, the funny thing is he was talking about possibly just recording the entire re-education camp that he was going to, which would be fantastic. I think he would get so many views off that. He talked about this before. It's really great when you can start monetizing their hatred of you. And for a while there, he was really monetizing their hatred. I forgot how much he was getting in donations. What was it he was on? The one that kicked him off of it. Patreon. Yeah. It was over $100,000 a month. I know that. I think in some cases it was almost close to $1 million. The dude became rich as can be off what he's been doing. And it all started because he said no to hate speech, like the hate speech bill that was being passed back then. So he was calling this out back then, and people say he was crazy. He was crazy. In fact, he was on a news, he was on like whatever the Canadian News Network is. I think it might just be Canadian News Network. But he was on there, and he was having this debate, and they were saying, well, people aren't really going to be jailed for what they say. And it's like, here it is now. We are here. They're talking about life imprisonment. They're talking about $70,000 fines. And even he pointed out to them, because they said, well, they're not talking about imprisoning you for your speech. They're talking about just fining you. And he says, well, what happens when I don't pay the fine? What happens then? Well, of course, then they're going to imprison you, right? Because as actually, I don't know how I'm blanking on his name. The great philosopher Penn Jillette once said, every law has to be enforced through the barrel of a gun. It doesn't matter how minor the law is. At the end of the day, someone will hold a gun to your head and say, obey me or not, or obey me or else. And there is a lot of truth in that, even though that dude is heavy libertarian.
Are we going to say libertarian or leftist with Penn these days? I think he's more left.
He's definitely socially a leftist, but his leftism at least comes from the aspect of ultimate freedom in a way. Like he doesn't care, I think, about like the drag show stuff and things like that, mostly because he just doesn't think the government should outlaw almost anything, which I can actually kind of respect that stance, disagree with it. But I can at least respect that stance because it's consistent and has some line of logic to it as well.
This particular bill in Canada is incredibly dangerous. It's terrible precedent for the Western world, and it's exactly the way a lot of Western quote unquote democracies are trending. And this is it started where it did, and we said this is a slippery slope. How many slippery slopes are we going to call out and not stand our ground on and say no more, never again. This is enough. I mean,
I think right
when are we gonna
now,
stand up?
I think right now it's no longer a slippery slope. I think what it is, we've fallen off the cliff and we're just like hitting those ridge lines as we're going down, you know? We're like stopping for a brief moment, going, "Oh, look at that," and keep going. Well, I mean, you're right, because the left likes to say the idea like the slippery slope fallacy, and it's like it's not a fallacy when it turns out to be true almost every single time. You just can't call it a fallacy and that be the truth of it, right? That's not how it works. It does seem to line up every single time we sit there and say this is a slippery slope. What do you know? It ends up happening eventually. And
Yeah, and it's,
you mentioned like
we're not going that far with it. Well, they don't say it yet because that's the word that's always implied. They don't say it out loud, but it's always implied.
I think in a lot of their minds, they really don't think they will go any further than it. It's just that, the whole joke is they're NPCs. They're just like random characters in video games. They just go on with whatever they're programmed to go along for. And because I've known so many people who, I said to them, this will be a slippery slope. And they went, no, we're not going to go that far. That's not the case. That's not just absolutely stupid. I totally disagree with that. And then what do you know? Once CNN and MSNBC told them, hey, no, this is actually good. We should go this far. They then got reprogrammed basically and said, no, they're right. We should go this far after all. I don't think when they're saying that, they're exactly lying all the time. It's just that they have no critical thinking skills and just go along with whatever they're told, basically.
No,
and once the people who are above them tell them it, then it's just, they just go right along with it.
Yeah, that happens on both sides. It happens on all sides.
Definitely. I more on the left.
Rare. A whole lot more on the left. I agree with that. But it's just hard to find anybody in the real world that actually thinks for themselves anymore.
And that's why we have to do away with universal voting rights. It cannot be the case. Not everyone should be voting. We need to do away with the ultimate right of franchise here. Like, it should not be the case. It should not be the case. Because too many people will just go along with whatever they're told. It's just no critical thinking skills whatsoever. At least you can debate some people on the left who have some level of critical thinking. But if you go to your standard college leftist, you're telling me they really should be allowed to vote? Come on. And if you're on the left, you're telling me some random hillbilly living in the woods who, thinks the world is flat, you think he should be allowed to make decisions for our country as well? Come on. Like, let's go back to the foundation of our country. There are better people, and they're the ones who should make decisions. I'm sorry, it's just the way it should be.
You're such an elitist.
Yes, because some people are better than others. It's like this whole 70s notion, and we act like it's just a universal truth now, that everyone is equal. We're all equal when it comes to our right as human beings. But guess what? We are all not equal in everything else, okay? Some people are smarter, some people are wiser, some people are stronger, faster, better, all that stuff. And we should acknowledge that. I should have no say on how an NBA player should play. Because guess what? I suck at basketball. I might be 6'5", but I can't play basketball. So someone who doesn't even know the year this country was founded should not be allowed to vote. Just simple things we could start changing here. Every podcast, I have to sit there and get that in. They want to get on Jack Posobiec for wanting to end democracy, and I'm over here actually advocating for it. Well, I'm advocating for not universal democracy, I guess.
So the question I had for Canada, is the question we always have. So who defines hate speech? Because that's going to be a question mark in itself. So in this context,
whoever's in power,
who defines who can vote? Whoever's in power.
That's why I say it should be it should be a test. It should be a competency test, nothing more. And guess what? Whoever's in power, even if they change up the test, anyone who's smart enough to do anything or is really worth anything can probably figure out how to pass it regardless. So have just a standard competency test. Have it be the same test you give to people when they're trying to apply for citizenship to our country. A very simple test that a 5th grader could pass. Because the whole idea isn't actually see who's really the most intelligent. It's to see who cares about their country the most, right? Who's actually willing to take on some kind of burden in order to play a part in making decisions for our country, even if that burden is something as small as taking a simple test.
So with the current state of our public school systems, the immigrants really would take over the country because they come in knowing a lot more than some of our very own homegrown.
Well, the funny thing is, the whole reason we got rid of the
You're
competency.
advocating for the replacement theory in a whole different way.
Well, it's one of these things where they try to say that we can't have competency tests because that was used during Jim Crow to stop black people from being able to vote because they didn't have access to the same things white people had. Well,
Yeah,
everyone has a phone now. All right, go into. I was opening up like 6 offices in the Bronx. Everyone had a cell phone there. Not a single person. The people who were homeless had cell phones. If they want to look up information on how to pass a stupid test, they can do it. There is no excuse for incompetence anymore. There really isn't. If you are stupid on an issue that you should know something about, that's on you. It doesn't matter how you were. At this point, it does not matter how you were raised. It doesn't matter what school you went to. All that matters is, are you lazy or not? All right. If you're lazy, you're not going to pick up your phone and instead you're going to pick up your phone and go through TikTok instead of picking up your phone and actually learning something. So everyone has access for the most part to their phone. We have public libraries throughout the country as well. There's no reason why you can't have a competency test at this point. There's just no reason whatsoever.
Well, TikTok tells you how to vote.
Well, I'm not sure if you saw this. I didn't have this pulled up, but the White House is now paying college students to register people to vote. And obviously, you know who they're going to lean towards. Let's be real.
Well, I mean,
So-
they're paying people on TikTok. They're paying people on Twitter. Yeah, they've been paying the quote unquote micro influencers all along. So most of the left wing posts that post on people that we would follow and like, they're being paid to just go in there and stir the waters.
Another group of people who I would like to take away the right to vote from are people who decided to vote because of an influencer. All right, if you got registered because you saw, like, I don't know, Taylor Swift tell you to go get registered, you have no business voting. All right, you should be completely banned from almost ever voting. I don't want to see you near any polling place ever.
So have you early voted in your primaries yet?
Nah, not yet. There was actually a guy who's running for local office, actually, who was our church last Sunday I was talking to, though, and he's actually running in our district. So I don't know. I don't know the person he's running against in the primary, but I will say, talking to him, I like him. I might do a little bit of research for it, but someone who goes to our church, I don't know. I feel obligated to vote for them for the primary.
You just went on this rant, and then you follow it with, I might do a little research. Go in there and go straight R.
Meeting. Well, no, it's the primary. The person he's voting, it doesn't really matter too much for that one.
It is all R for the primary, but
Exactly.
I mean, down the road, it doesn't matter. It's straight R. That's your research.
No, my research was having a conversation with the man. All right, I stayed a little bit later after church just so I could talk to him a bit to see kind of what he was about. So that's A level research right there.
It's more than most of us do. There's been some, around here, you don't get a lot of, door to door going on, but we've had a couple of folks come by doing door knocking. I think about you every time there's a political door knocker coming around.
I absolutely hated it so much. And the only reason I hate it is because I had to defend crap I didn't actually believe half the time. Like, especially when that one politician came out like against, not really against gun rights, but said, we need to increase the, certification level you have to get before you're allowed to, buy a handgun and things like that. I couldn't defend that crap when I was going door to door. Like, you could just see it on my face. I didn't believe it, right?
Wait, that's not in the Constitution?
I haven't told him straight up, like, it's going to cause so many problems when we're going door to door, and it'll be fine. The shooting happened around this area. People will totally understand. And I was like, nope, people did not want that.
No. Enforce the laws that we already got. There's plenty on the books. They're just not being enforced.
So I did have one last story I wanted to pull up. Really, there was a bunch of stories I still was going to pull up, but it's getting late. So I got one more I wanted to pull up because I want to end on a positive note here at least. And that is in Tennessee. On Tennessee, they passed a bill banning pride flags from being displayed in classrooms. So all those TikTok videos you've seen of teachers having Black Lives Matter and the pride flag and trans flag and all that stuff, no more of in Tennessee, which is fantastic. And it's funny, even SCNR here puts it as banning pride flags, just because obviously that makes for the better headline. It really just bans, and it has it down here, the bill does not specifically mention pride flags, but prohibits school staff and teachers from displaying flags other than the United States, Tennessee, or official school flags. It explicitly prohibits displaying flags that represent any political viewpoint, including but not limited to a partisan, racial, sexual orientation, gender, or ideological viewpoint. So really, it's banning any.
They did it just like the Florida bill. The
Yes.
Florida bill nowhere said don't say gay. This bill in no way says no pride flags. They just
Now, I will say, this
for the cloud.
This site's actually a pretty good right-wing site, so I'll give them a pass with it a little bit. But oh yeah, Cassandra McDonald. Do you follow her on X at all?
I don't, but that's interesting. So I thought I followed everybody that I should be following.
So she's a little crazy. I mean, she has a pet monkey, so that should tell you something. She's definitely a little out there, and I think she sides with Palestine a little bit too. But she's like straight up isolationism, just we should not be involved anywhere whatsoever. So, okay. I do like a lot of her articles at least. But yeah, Tennessee actually made it so no pride flags, no more Black Lives Matter flags, no more just any political flags whatsoever. The only flags you can have is the American flag, the Tennessee flag, or the school flag, and that is it. Which, frankly, I don't know how that's not just a standard rule for most schools in the first place. Now,
well, I mean, obviously, it's becoming the state religion, and so there was a separation of church and state argument to be made for some of these usages of flags in the classroom.
Oh, separation of church and state's a bunch of BS. Thomas Jefferson said it one time, and then that's.
It was a very important letter, though, that it was found in. It was a really important letter.
Yeah, a letter that was talking about more of the establishing a church of America, but no. So I mean, it makes sense to a wide degree, right? That you should only have that. Now, I do think there should be some leeway. Like, I think our school had a bunch of pirate flags up because obviously, we were on the coastline, so pirates. We learned about pirates like in third grade. I think it was like third or fourth grade. We learned about Blackbeard and a couple other pirates that kind of are along our coastline. I remember learning about like the gentleman pirate that went down over like in South Carolina. Really cool story about him. That's one you should definitely look up. The gentleman pirate. That's a good story. But pirate flags in our school that should be allowed. Another thing here is they probably won't allow things like the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, right? Even though that has a lot of historical importance in America. So my only problem with some of these laws is they should probably give some wiggle room when it comes to anything of historical importance based around the country, or give some exceptions out to that, because I want to see "Don't Tread on Me" flags in American schools. They say the Betsy Ross flag is, a political flag these days that represents slavery. Remember, Nike had to get rid of their Betsy Ross flag shoes when they rolled them out. So, you won't have, they might tell you can't have a Betsy Ross flag now. I don't know. But I will say the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. And it's at least good to see at least one state out there doing something about it when it comes to this. I think, again, Florida did some really good stuff as well, but it's good to see other states stepping up here.
Yeah, a good come and take it flag is always acceptable anywhere.
Every Texas school should have that. As well as they remember the Alamo flag. Obviously, you can't take that away from them. What a small, inconsequential battle, but makes for one hell of a rallying cry.
Yeah. And just the collection of unique individuals that wound up at that little mission in the middle of nowhere. But that's a whole nother story that we could get into.
That's the problem.
Can Can you imagine that? I mean, John Wayne died there. It's got to be of importance.
I forgot which character did he play.
Come on, he's Davy Crockett.
Was he Davy Crockett? Oh, okay, I wasn't sure.
Of course.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. It's been a long time. Sure, I think I watched it in elementary school of all things. We were learning about the Alamo, and they played that for us.
That movie was his passion. He bankrolled the whole thing. He didn't want to play the role, but they wouldn't bankroll it unless he agreed to play the role. And
Wait, that movie was his passion? I thought Genghis Khan was his passion.
No, that was his biggest mistake in his acting career.
Well, it wound up being a mistake that killed him. Don't forget, because they recorded it where they dropped the nukes, and so it probably led to, a lot of the issues he had later on.
There was also some smoking stuff.
I'll still say this before we get off here. When we went over to LA and saw John Wayne's, handprints and feet prints, all stuff, that dude had some small feet. He was a small dude. He was wearing like a size 6.
See, he was a tall guy though, so at least he didn't have to wear the lifts. Like my favorite candidate was wearing that you made fun of. But I was watching a training video today, and the guy was he's kind of a shorter guy, but he was working the stage like good speakers do and going back and forth. But he's a younger guy. He's wearing skinny jeans and the exact same lifted boots that DeSantis was wearing. And the entire time I was completely distracted from what I needed to be learning from watching this guy. And so I actually looked at your mom. I was like, hey, is it just me or are those shoes really distracting? so now I kind of feel a little bit more on the side of, okay, that was a problem. But DeSantis still should be our president. That was a huge mistake.
I'll make sure I put that in a short. That way you can get all the hate comments like you normally do. That's always funny. Anytime you mention DeSantis being the candidate or being president, it's just always a bunch of comments going like, who's this old man supporting DeSantis, neocon and all this stuff. I'm like, he's not a neocon.
Not a neocon, but DeSantis is the only sane choice for president, and we still should nominate him at our nominating.
So real quick, you saw that it was reported that he was on Trump's short list for possible VP candidates still.
But he's already said he's not going to do it, and I hope he doesn't because we need him in Florida.
I agree with that one. If he did, though, it would be actually not that bad of an idea because it would kind of unify two aspects of the party, I think, pretty well. Because there's a lot of people who support DeSantis who don't want to support Trump. So that actually might help out a little bit. I know Vivek was on that list. Of course, I love it, but he doesn't offer Trump anything.
No, they're already on the same side. The one thing the Democrats have us completely whipped on in every situation is they will not break rank no matter what. Their candidate can sleep with a Chinese spy. Their candidate can have actual gold bars and take bribes. Nothing matters. They will not break rank.
It's because their side is filled with...
Trump calls somebody one bad name and we're never going to vote for him again. We're never going to come together. We just won't we won't hold rank.
Well, I had one of my friends even ask me like, you're still comfortable voting for Trump this time around? And I'm like, hell yes. We're on the verge of World War III. We didn't have that under Trump. Like, you can sit there and talk about all the tweets. You can talk about the whole grab them by the P word. You can talk about any of that crap you want to talk about. But we weren't at World War III. Like, we didn't have China trying to go against Taiwan. We didn't have spy balloons flying over our country constantly. We have another one right now.
Yeah, there were some funny memes about that too.
Maybe
slightly racist, but they were funny.
As well as things where in 2016, I pulled the lever for Trump, kind of like, don't really like it, but he's probably going to be a leftist, but fine. And then he did a bunch of things. He started off trying to do some things that were on the left too. He tried to be the moderate candidate, but they just weren't having it. So then he went pretty good. He went pretty well on the right for a while there. And there was a couple of things I still hated he did, like the, bump stock ban and stuff like that, which is terrible. However, you know what? He beat ISIS within like a year or two, right? He stopped us bombing other countries pretty soon after that as well. Russia shut up about trying to take Ukraine for at least 4 years there. I mean, America on the world stage was pretty good.
Yeah, the man, he's got to say something, at least change his stance on the vaccine and everything that went on with COVID. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, that was still. However, then again, any other president that could roll out a vaccine for what people were calling a pandemic in that short amount of time would have been praised to the moon and back. Like, it would have been nonstop praise.
There would have been Nobel Prizes and all sorts of things. But
Obama
you're right.
got a Nobel Peace Prize before he was even president and before we started bombing children in countries we weren't at war with.
And American citizens.
Yes, and American citizens. Obama, he is...
And weddings.
He has assassinated more people than any other Nobel Peace Prize winner, probably. But yeah, I don't know. I cheerfully pulled the lever in 2020, and now for 2024, I'm probably even more excited to pull the lever just because I kind of want to see them freak out again. It would be really funny.
Well, I'm not thrilled to pull the lever, to be perfectly honest, and you know that. So here I'm whatever you want to call me. But
to be honest, I think reasonable.
I will, because the lesser of two evils is still less evil.
Well, it's about moving that Overton window, right? Right now we're on Biden. Let's move it at least a little bit over back to our side.
Yep. Gosh, man, it's just so ridiculous to be deciding between two 80-year-olds.
That to me is the biggest negative about Trump to me is his age. Of all the things I have the bad about, or all the things that are bad about Trump, to me that is still the biggest, is the fact of there's a good chance he won't make it the 4 years period. Or by the end of it, he has just as much dementia as Joe Biden. I mean, hopefully all the McDonald's preservatives in his body will keep him, pretty fresh, but I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah. What are the long-term effects of Big Macs and Diet Coke? Because that seems to be his diet.
Wait, well, if that's the case, then Mom's going to live forever because, I mean, that's all she drinks is diet soda.
Diet Pepsi, though. She drinks the better of the Diet Coalition.
North Carolina.
Pepsi is first period of Coke, always has been, always will be.
Well, on that note of Pepsi being better than Coke, I'm sure we can get some good comments out of that. I think it is almost midnight. I know we started a little bit late, so I guess that kind of works out. Which is funny because there's still so many stories I probably had like 3 more stories I could have pulled up here, but we'll leave it for that for tonight.
So
either way,
like, subscribe. Let's get this thing monetized so we can just do more than one a week.
Yes. Once this gets monetized, I will gladly do this more than once a week. Right now, I have another channel that is monetized, so I have to spend more time on that one just so I can, pay at least some of the bills with it.
I'm not invited on that channel, so maybe I'm the problem.
You know what? When I do my Half-Life video, I'll make sure to invite you in. How's that?
Well,
I'll at least bring up, how you're the one who introduced me to it. I'll at least bring that up.
Well,
Which, hey, real quick, funny thing.
I want you to do a retro on Redneck Rampage.
Oh God, I played that one again. It was so bad. It's such a bad game.
Which makes it even better.
Ugh. All I will say is, the other day, Junior wanted to grab a controller and play a game with me on the Xbox, and so I loaded up Halo, not Half-Life, but I gave him the controller, put him in the backseat of the Warthog. I'm not sure if you remember, Halo had the Jeep they could get in the backseat, and the end of the first game was that Warthog, run to the end basically. And I had him in the backseat of the Warthog, and he was spinning the thing around with the stick, and then just holding the trigger, just shooting, not hitting basically anything, but we were just doing the whole Warthog run with him in the backseat, thinking he was playing, doing all this stuff. At the end of it, he was cheering. He was like, "We did it! We did it!"
You can do that some.
Don't worry. Right afterwards, he went outside and he shot basketball. So
he's a smart kid, and remember, 75% of his adult vocabulary is being formed right now.
Well, I mean, Halo has some good lines. I'm just saying. Hey, I learned a lot of good words from Half-Life. I remember that one. Got me wanting to learn more about science. So that was at least a good positive.
Yeah, thought you were going to go to the ones you learned from Redneck Rampage. Turned off.
Yeah, that's yeah, that one has some language in it. Well, I remember you didn't want me playing that the opposing force expansion from Half-Life because the beginning of it had them swearing a bunch. You're like, you can't be doing this thing. You can't be playing this. But then eventually I just kept playing it and you're like, okay. I think you said something along the lines of like, just don't let your mom see that.
Well, it was more than once she would walk through the door and holler up, "All right, boys, I'm home," so that y'all would tone the language down just a little bit.
Hey, I was just happy that she at least understood. Okay, in certain company we're allowed to cuss, but then there's certain company you're not supposed to cuss in front
I
of.
don't think she never agreed with that. She said you weren't supposed to at any time. She just knew you knew the deal.
Hey, I'm good about controlling my language when I need to be. Like here, I don't cuss that much here, even though I get pretty animated at times.
Yeah, you almost said it all. Yeah, you caught yourself because you almost told a lie.
Yeah, I think I dropped 2 curses throughout this entire video, which isn't that. Now, my gaming channel, I drop a heck of a lot more, but that's knowing your audience is what that is. All right, on that, let's go ahead and close it out. This is like right around the 2-hour mark, so we're good. Everyone, like, subscribe. We'll be posting clips of the video throughout the week, and hope to be seeing you again real soon.